Some more Liberal leadership news. Quebec Liberal Party leader Pablo Rodriguez has stepped down after weeks of turmoil in his party. Sources told Radio-Canada that Rodriguez announced his resignation during a meeting with his caucus this afternoon. The former federal MP and Trudeau-era cabinet minister had only been at the helm of the Quebec Liberals for 6 months, and now they got to figure out who's next. The CBC's Cathy Senet has been following this story. So, Cathy, we know he's leaving. What else do we know right now?
Well, Pablo Rodriguez will hold a press conference at 10:30 tomorrow in Montreal. His resignation comes after he and his party have been facing an internal crisis for a month. And Rodriguez held on with support from his caucus until now. And we know how pivotal this is. And so that support held for a while. But as the revelations kept coming, the tide shifted, especially in the last few days, because MNAs were back in their ridings after the legislative session at the National Assembly, and that marked the beginning of the end for his leadership. It was a very tough moment. Some MNAs have been supporting Pablo Rodriguez for a long time, but had no choice in the last few days to say it was over.
I mean, this has felt inevitable from here in Ottawa. I mean, you obviously have a much closer view of it, but how do we get to this point of all of this turmoil inside the Liberal Party of Quebec with an election not that far off?
Exactly. So former federal minister Pablo Rodriguez became the new Quebec Liberal leader in June. So about 6 months later, he was under enormous pressure to resign. It started when star MNA Marois Risky was suspended and then kicked out of the Liberal caucus because she fired her chief of staff, Geneviève Hintz, who worked with Rodriguez in Ottawa without telling him. And from there, David, a series of dominoes began to fall, with weekly and sometimes daily bad news about the leadership race that Rodriguez ended up winning, including allegations of a pay-for-vote scheme. Not long after, the Quebec's anti-corruption squad, UPAC, confirmed it was investigating the Quebec Liberal Party. There are also allegations that the businessmen reimbursed donors for contributions to Rodriguez's campaign. That practice is illegal. Rodriguez also gave $20,000 to his wife to rent his office in Montreal during his leadership race. That practice is not illegal, but Rodriguez said that he wouldn't do it again. So basically, every time journalists were questioning Pablo Rodriguez in the last few weeks, he had to defend his integrity, but more particularly, his leadership.
Right, and that's no way to go into an election year, right? When you're constantly asking questions like that, you're not going to get a clean day for your message. So what's next? I mean, the election's not going to move just because Pablo Rodriguez quit. I mean, what's next for the party as they look for their next leader?
If I can come back to your comment, because Rodriguez became a distraction.
This is what
you don't want. So the party is now without a leader heading to an election year. And the Quebec Liberal Party seems to want to have a short leadership race that could last from 4 to 6 weeks and could start at the beginning of 2026. It will need a strong leader that appeal to Francophone regions where the Quebec Liberal Party needs to be doing better because Quebec Liberals are very good to appeal to Quebec, to English-speaking Quebecers, for example. We got a confirmation who won't be a candidate, Marois Risky, because political analysts mention her name quite often in the last few hours. She confirmed on social media that she has no intention to run. She had previously announced that she would not seek another mandate in 2026. And it won't be Federal Minister of Industry, Mélanie Joly, who was approached and declined the offer. François-Philippe Champagne, the Federal Finance Minister, also said no. He was questioned by CBC earlier today. Take a listen.
Well, I think that my way of serving Quebec and Quebecers has been to bring my voice to Ottawa. And I think as Minister of Finance, you would appreciate that I have a lot of things on my plate to make sure that we succeed. We build the strongest economy in the G7. And it's my way to contribute to our democracy and to also represent the people from Quebec.
So, David, this is a very important moment because the Parti québécois has been leading in the polls for more than 2 years and has promised a referendum on Quebec independence in its first mandate after taking power. And the CAQ, Premier François Legault's government, has been unpopular for months and months. So the stakes are really high for the Quebec Liberal Party, and the clock is ticking because the next provincial election in Quebec is on October 5th, 2026.
Okay, so you've got a busy 9 or 10 months ahead of you, Cathy Senet.
I do.
This is CBC's Cathy Senet in Quebec City. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Okay, so with the Liberals already lagging behind the Souverainist Parti Québécois in the polls, what could this resignation mean for the fast-approaching provincial election next year? For more on this, joining me now, we have Michel Courchaine, who is a former Liberal MNA and Deputy Premier of Quebec, and Rudy Husney, a former advisor to Prime Minister Stephen Harper. I want to thank you both for being here on a very busy day. Rudy, just start with you. I mean, this has felt inevitable for a while. Did Pablo Rodriguez have any other choice but to quit?
No. It's been 4 weeks that the media reports keep on dropping in terms of, brownie stories and fling-flang, and the pressure was mounting at caucus. So I think Mr. Rodriguez didn't have a choice but to resign. We're still waiting for him to make a public statement and to make a press conference. We expected that it's going to be tomorrow, but he did inform his caucus today at 2 o'clock that he is stepping down. And yes, it was the correct decision to make, especially with everything that has been going on in Quebec. The Liberal Party of Quebec has been completely neutralized with all those stories, not being able to get any credit, for example, for the work that has been done by all the current members of the National Assembly, just because of all those ongoing stories about his leadership race.
So Michel, where does this leave the party? I mean, 2025 is not an election year, but it's almost over. And there is an election in 2026. How do they rebound from this in time for that campaign?
Well, we'll see. There will be a race, hopefully, because I think it's better to have a race and see who will be there. As you know, Cal Bradburn and Charles Milliard were two running guy. They lost. Pablo Rodriguez won. So surely Cal Blackburn will be part of the race. Mr. Milliard seems to hesitate, but in my mind, he will be there. And it's better to have a race. Why? Because the situation is so difficult that I feel that the members of the Liberal Party should be able to, this time again, choose the best person to become a leader. And I think it's going to be a quick race. What I hear is the party is already working on that, so it's going to be short, and hopefully we'll have other debates, we'll have other vision, and we'll be able to rebuild. We still have time, but the leader has no, how could I say, that won't have any droit à l'erreur, no time for mistakes.
Yeah, no margin of error, no flexibility. It's got to go
right.
well.
So the challenge for the next leader will be very, very difficult, but not impossible. The Liberal Party has all the energy, the experience, the strength to, they have conviction. There's a very, very important election next October. So they will be there, but they'll choose the person, the man or the lady, but I think it's going to be a man, who have the better choice to, if not win the election, have some gains, especially with the Francophones, because the difficulty for the party is to regain the trust of the Francophones voters. That's the challenge.
So Rudy, look, if 2025 has taught us anything, is political circumstances can change dramatically, even when you change leaders. But the word here in Ottawa is François-Philippe Champagne, Mélanie Joly, not going to get into this. It would be, maybe more of the candidates that Michel has outlined. But we look at the public opinion polling, the Parti Québécois 10 to 20 points ahead. They seem inevitable. I mean, what does this mean for the Quebec Liberals' chance to cut into that lead?
Yes, I think it would be a huge mistake and it would be complete madness to bring somebody from Ottawa, because the problem of Pablo Rodriguez was that he came with Ottawa, he came with his gang, and it didn't work with the Quebec Liberal Party. So I do believe that they have time. I do believe that a snap race, look what happened with Mark Carney. Prime Minister Trudeau resigned in January, and in March, Prime Minister Carney was elected. I think that the provincial Liberals can do the same and have a leader as early as late February or early March. We'll see. The party needs to decide on the calendar. But look, it's going to be a very important election. Yes, people want change in Quebec. They're looking for change. For the moment, there's a lot of people who are, yes, putting their support behind Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon and the leader of the Parti Québécois, but that they are against a referendum. So in a way, they're kind of parking their vote for the PQ because the Quebec Liberal Party wasn't able to be competitive because of its leader, because of Pablo Rodriguez. So I do believe that if they change their leader and they put forward a candidate with an economic background that is able, exactly as Michel said, to win the hearts and minds of the Francophones in Quebec, they can be competitive in that election comes October.
So Michel, this is the question I have as someone outside of Quebec about the PQ lead. Is it just about the desire for change? Because the Premier, François Legault, is saying that it won't hold because it's synonymous with a sovereignty referendum, and we don't want that, to quote the Premier. Now, I don't know if that's self-serving analysis or if you share that analysis, but how durable do you think this PQ advantage is at the moment?
Well, you know, I think it can be a kind of fragile because voters are looking for an alternative. So if there's no alternative, because François Legault is not very popular these days, well, that's the reason why they're looking to the PQ and saying, you know what, we're going to elect the PQ, but when the referendum will come, we'll say no. Because if you look at the polls, Quebecers don't want sovereignty, and it's still the case. But, you know, in politics, we say sometimes a month is an eternity. I will say 24 hours sometimes is an eternity. And a lot of things can happen until the election in October. So we'll see. But, and maybe François Legault will, you know, remain and stay. A lot of people thought that he would leave, but he won't leave. He'll stay there. He's the founder of La Coalition Avenir Québec, so he'll stay there. And maybe he'll go, he has maybe a chance to go right in between. But all of that depends on the next leader of the Liberal Party. And that's where the guy will have a very, very strong pressure on his shoulder because the challenge will be huge. But it's not impossible. I know that. I know that in politics, anything can happen. And nowadays, being in politics is very different than what it was 20 years ago when I was there. So we'll see.
Right.
But the next leader needs to have a lot of experience, strength, good people surrounding him. And Parti Québécois, you know, they will do some mistakes as all the parties once in a while has to go through.
Well, Rudy, just as a final point, political leader, potential leaders with those qualities, they're in short supply. Who is the person you can see stepping in the time available that might give the Liberals their best shot in Quebec and cut into that PQ lead?
Yes, so there's two candidates that were former teammates and lost. Charles Milliard came second in the last race.
Right.
He comes from he has an economic background. Also, Cal Blackburn, who's a former member of the National Assembly, also a former CEO of the Business Council of Quebec. Those two persons would perhaps be candidate, but don't forget, there can also be somebody from also the private sector. The advantage is that We know exactly when the race is happening. It's going to be happening in October. The Premier already said that there's not going to be any spring election. So for somebody who wants to fight and make sure that Quebec stays in Canada, that can also be a good challenge, knowing that in a year or so, he or she can be Premier in November.
A fascinating year ahead in Quebec politics. Well, there's always fascinating years, but this one in particular. Rudy Husney, Michel Courchain, thank you both so much for joining us today.